Feiko asked me to design a series of rugs based on the story of their own wool. So the story of this Corriedale sheep and how the wool is being spun and made into the rug. What we chose to do is to choose all the production landscapes that are important for making the rug in the end. It's also celebrating the production process to show how much effort, how much traveling, how much love goes into it.
Bill! Where Bill? Wally on Bill! Listen, we're on.
The yarn from CSrugs is made from a sheep that lives in New Zealand. It's a Corriedale sheep and it's one of the first crossbreds. It's crossbred between a Merino and a Lincoln sheep. And Merino sheep were introduced in the 1700s from Europe. They were actually smuggled in that direction because the sheep were super valuable at the time. Right now there are 39 million sheep in New Zealand. It's hard to imagine that one time there were no sheep at all. The sheep in New Zealand, they eat the grass, they live their life in that weather. And all those elements make the quality of the wool. There's a direct connection to the land, which I think is really an interesting subject to work with. So, for instance, when you would look at the rug that's going to be made of the New Zealand landscape, you're looking at a landscape with wool and sheep, but this material is actually made from this landscape. From the sheep's wool, when it's shorn, it's transported to be washed, and the dyeing process is done in France. And then the actual tufting process is all done in Aston, where it's tufted into rugs. The base color is made of the CSrugs color palette, but I somehow thought it would be really nice to add some liveliness to it. Like when you would look at a real landscape, from afar it has, for instance, one color, but if you look really close to a grass field, you always see like little flowers or different colors. To create this liveliness, I added this yarn, which is spun in Donegal, and it's a yarn that I made in an earlier project where I looked at what could you do with 1,000 woolen sweaters. So these sweaters were shredded into fibers, and all the sweaters together gave this really rich and colorful color palette. It's local wool from Ireland combined with these little pieces that come from the sweaters. So from this material you can spin a yarn, and then once it's spun it gives a sort of really subtle, nice color fleck. I really like it when projects grow into each other. You do a lot of research and you learn something in one project, and then it's sometimes temporarily stuck somewhere. But it's really great if it then can grow on. So this was really a prototype and a research project. But I think through this project, it could become like an actual produced yarn. The production sites are as important for the process as the sort of romantic site where the sheep are walking. I think it's really nice to show everything. By showing different production sites, you also tell the story of transport and that a material travels. This really technical quality of the tufting process, we try to really look at what is possible at all the extreme edges. So like we were finding out, can we make roads, can we make farmland, roofs of houses, trees. We are like still studying making perfect trees. CSrugs develops all these techniques to create all kinds of different effects. There are 20 yarns that go together in the tufting needle, and that's tufted in the rug. When you look at the back of the rug, you just see a line go like this. On the front side of the rug, it's doing all this amazing textures, but it's tufted like this, like it goes this way, row by row. But then it makes all these patterns that are completely different. So one yarn starts here, for instance, and there it goes, cut, 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 loop. And then it goes lower loop, high loop, high loop, high loop. And here it's making this really nice sort of ribbed structure. So it's extremely complicated, but the production technique is really light. So I think this combination is quite special. This one tells the story about the production, but if you look at the rug that will be made of New Zealand, you're looking at an image, but it actually physically is that landscape as well. There is poetry in the reality, so with this project I don't try to show the sort of romantic handicraft sheep in a field side, but I try to show that also a very high-tech industrial product carries this DNA of an actual animal and actual people that are making this. And I think it's really important to be aware of all this effort and love that is in everything that's around us.